This is Barcelona, the Olympic city, the capital of Catalonia, and one of the most beautiful cities in Europe. But for Rangers fans, of course, all that is incidental. Barcelona means only one thing: the Nou Camp Stadium and the unforgettable European Cup Winners' Cup victory. John Grieg is back here for the first time since that unforgettable evening in 1972. John Grieg was already a Rangers legend by 1972, after a decade at the top for club and country. But European success had always eluded him until that famous night in Barcelona. 23 years on, Grieg was back at the hotel which had been Rangers' base all those years before.
This is it. God, this hasn't changed.
Really?
I see they haven't finished that building yet. Mind you, if we'd lost that final, Dougie, they might have locked us up there for the rest of our lives.
It's lovely though, isn't it?
When you can see the views you get here, it's absolutely magnificent. I can tell you one thing, I feel a lot better now than the last time I sat here. My head was thumping.
There had been a few headaches along the way to the Cup Winners' Cup triumph too, for in every round the draw had provided tough opposition for Rangers. Rarely has a European trophy been so hard-earned.
If you look back on it now, we played the French champions, the Portuguese champions, the Italian champions, the German champions, and then played Moscow Dynamo in the final. It was a hard campaign. I'm a great believer, Dougie, in European football, because it changes so much and it's a different way from your normal every Saturday game. The first round in Europe's a very important place to play. It's a difficult hurdle to get over. And we were drawn against Rennes of France in the first round of the first leg away. And all we set out to do there was to make sure that we'd give ourselves a chance back at Ibrox. And we got a 1-1 draw in France, brought them back to Ibrox, and Alec McDonald scored and we went through. Now that was a couple of games under our belt and that got us going.
Round 2, and Rangers were drawn against Sporting Lisbon, and there was to be a pre-match scare for the Rangers captain.
The morning of the match at Ibrox, the first leg, we're staying down at Largs, and somebody chipped his ball and I turned to run for it, and I didn't see this great big park bench. And I came down and hit my chin against the iron stanchion, and it knocked me out, because Colin Steen came across and he told me later, he says, you looked as if you had two mouths because your mouth was open and your chin just burst open like that. Nobody knew, they kept it quiet, and I went out and played. And I was playing against this big coloured lad who was about 6'3". And it was okay for about 75 minutes, but the painkillers and that must have taken their effect. I completely blew a gasket. For about 15 minutes to go, I was really shattered. But at the press conference later, Willie Waddle told them what had happened, and that was the start of the beard.
That beard was to prove a lucky charm for Grieg and for Rangers. Colin Steen scored twice and Willie Henderson once as the return leg finished 4-3 to the Portuguese after extra time.
We played the game and went into extra time. And at the end of extra time, it was level. And Willie Waddle says, right, John, you're the captain, you take the last penalty. Never got a chance. All our guys missed, including Davy Smith. We got to take it twice.
It was a bit of a nightmare. I've never been up and down so much in my life. Not because it was the green hoops, it was just because all of a sudden we were there, and then we missed a penalty, and then we missed another one, and before we know it, we'd missed them all.
The Portuguese scored, and they were taking the Portuguese goalie around the stadium on the shoulders of all the players, and of course we're trooping off head down into the dressing room.
And we're all standing in the showers, And John Fairgrieve, the late John Fairgrieve, who was a pal of Willie Waddle's, came into the dressing room and he said to Willie Waddle, he says, you know, he says, I think you're through. So Willie Waddle immediately went to his briefcase and got the UEFA rule book, and it was right.
So of course a big posse along to the referee, and then they came back and awarded us the game. The referee apologised for making a mistake. So for being in the depths of despair to jump in the boot like daft young laddies, it was very eventful.
We arrived at Glasgow and the supporters' plane was at the back of ours, and of course they joined us queuing up for our baggage, and they actually thought we were out. They hadn't realised that we'd qualified. I mean, as soon as the game finished, they were back in the buses and on the plane and home. They didn't realise that we'd gone through. So if you'd have seen the baggage compartment at Glasgow Airport for the next 2 hours after, it was magnificent.
So Rangers were through to the last 8, and another tough one, Torino of Italy. John Grieg, as always, would have an important role to play.
At the team talk that night was funny. Willie Waddle came out with his usual dossier and all the players, and eventually came to their number 10, a guy called Claudio Sala. I'll never forget that lad. He says, John, he says, this is the latest Italian wonder boy. He says, he is the guy that makes them play. He says, what I want you to do is to put him out the game, and we've got a real chance. So I says, to put him out the game, boss, I says, do you mean just for tonight or for good? Anyway, I actually won the toss that night. And I says to Colin Steen, pass the ball to Alec MacDonald, and Doddy, you pass it back diagonally to me, and I was playing right midfield. And the boys carried me on, it was my lack of control, but the ball bounced about 3 or 4 yards in front of me. And the Italians always come at you quick in a match, they always come and try and encircle you. And of course this young lad came shooting after me to try and get the ball, and I just went in and I didn't kick him. I took the ball and Tim and everything, you know, and he was about 6 feet in the air, and the game hadn't gone 5 seconds. And I looked across to the bench and Willie Waddle just shaking his head.
A 1-1 draw in Italy and a 1-0 win at Ibrox with Alex MacDonald scoring took Rangers through to the semi-final, and a third meeting in 5 years with the pride of Germany.
They had a run of about 5 or 6 years, right through from about 67 right through to the early 70s, where they were a great side. Franz Beckenbauer, Gerd Müller, Breitner, Sepp Maier in goals. They had about seven in the German international team. So we played them over in Munich, first leg. And again, we went through the same procedures, trying to keep it tight and everything. The first 25 minutes of that game, they were unbelievably good.
We got the biggest hiding we have ever had in our lives when we played over in Bern. We didn't just get out our half in the first half. I didn't think we even got out the box.
I remember sitting after the match and saying to Sandy Jardine, some of the guys, I said, you know, in that first 25 minutes, the only guy that didn't have a shot at goals was Sepp Maier, the goalkeeper. Everybody else in the team had a shot at goals. But again, they scored and we got a goal, brought them back to Ibrox with a real chance. Because I always fancied our chances at Ibrox. It didn't matter to me if it was Real Madrid or Albion Rovers. I always fancied Rangers' chances at Ibrox against anybody. So we brought them back to Ibrox. But in between these 2 legs, we had to play a semi-final of the Scottish Cup against Hibs. And that's where I got my injury. I hurt my foot, broke a bone in my foot. So they had me walking up and down in the water, the salt water down at Troon, thinking this might get better, but it was no use. It was too bad an injury. And Derek Parlane took my place. Well, that's the longest 90 minutes I've ever had to go through in my life.
He's turned up towards the halfway line. Johnston through to Jardine. Jardine working his way in field, trying a left foot shot, and it's a good one, and it's there! A sensation!
We got off to a great start. Sandy scored about the first 2 minutes of the game. He cut in from the right back position and sclaffed his shot with his left foot. I mean, he'll tell you differently, but we watched him in training every day. He sclaffed it with his left foot, and it sailed into Sepp Maier's top right-hand corner. And I don't know who was more surprised, Sepp Maier or Sandy.
Over it comes, punched away one-handed, and a chance for a goal! Referee gives it. Derek Parlane.
It was interesting that night to watch Franz Beckenbauer and Sepp Maier, 2 great players. They were arguing with each other in the second half because they just lost the place. They just lost it. And that was us through to the final. And that's when one of the problems started. Because we'd beaten all these teams, and particularly Bayern Munich, we had to guard against complacency.
It was always going to be tough. After all, it was a European final, the third for which Rangers had qualified in 11 years. This time, surely, they would get their hands on the trophy. But as Greg recalls, it was a nervous journey to the new camp.
When we got in the coach, it was all a bit quiet and apprehensive. And then the mood started to change a little bit. But during that spell, I suddenly remembered the previous European Cup Winners' Cup final we had played in Nuremberg against Bayern Munich. That flashed back across my mind, and I thought, well, that's not going to happen tonight. So we got near the stadium, the songs were going wildly in the bus, and the surprising thing was that within about 3 or 4 miles of the stadium, you could see nothing but Rangers supporters. We were something like 20,000-25,000 travelled over from Scotland. And I'm not really a guy that gets choked or anything, but I had a lump in my throat that night because I looked at these supporters and I thought, well, for your sake and for the club's sake, we can't let you down tonight.
Thousands upon thousands of Rangers fans arrived in Barcelona in the days before the final. They would make up the vast majority of the 35,000 who watched the match in the magnificent Nou Camp Stadium. It was to be one of the greatest nights of their lives, and of course, of John Grieg's too. Well, there it is, John, your first view of it for 23 years.
Yeah.
It's changed a bit, I suppose.
Well, look at Ibrox in 23 years, Dougie. You would expect that here as well, but it's not a magnificent stadium. When I come in now and look at it, the memories come flooding back. I mean, emotionally, it was a big night. When we came out, the noise, I mean, there was 25,000 Rangers supporters, but it was like playing at Ibrox in front of maybe 80 or 90,000. All you could see was the flags and the banners.
And the stadium erupts in red, white and blue. You've never seen anything like it.
And we had a couple of injuries at that time with John Grieg and Alfie Conn, and Big Bomber get injured the day of the game, which was horrendous.
It was a great build-up to the game, and remember, I didn't realise I was playing. Colin Jackson was injured, and had Colin been fit, then I don't think I would have played. He would have played instead of me. His obviously greater experience for the game.
They actually looked a bit nervous, and they looked more apprehensive than we did, because there was nobody here supporting them, and they must have been amazed that here we're playing in Spain and we've got 25,000 supporters there, and our supporters are real punters.
And off we go. There's Sabo, Joseph Sabo goes down heavily. John Grieg behind him. Willie Johnston and John Grieg no doubt be looking after Sabo tonight.
From a personal point of view, I didn't think I did myself justice. I didn't think I did the team justice. I ran about as I normally did, but I could only kick the ball with my instep. I couldn't really hit the ball hard with my right foot, and that affected my tackling as well, of course.
John Grieg. Grieg. Good tackle by Grieg. Colin Steen. Steen going in and impeded by the referee, and nevertheless, Rangers picking up the pace of the game now. Good one to that far side, is touched away there by Zykov. Evrajan. Jardin. No whistle, Dave Smith has it. Towards Colin Steen. Here's Steen, it's a goal! It's a goal by Steen, what a goal!
I remember it was for all the Rangers fans. There was, I think, about 35,000 there. And it was just a sea blue, and there was nobody. Obviously, it's a big stadium, but obviously there was no Russians there. I just turned around and all I could see was the sea blue, red, white and blue coming towards me.
And they're singing Colin Steen's name here. Sabo just getting there. Good tackle by Grieg. Number 6, Zykov. John Grieg's there. Just a touch by Grieg. Grieg really, you know, is not the fit John Grieg we'd like to see, but he's out there and he's playing his heart out for Rangers. Here's Dave Smith. Smith going up. It's a good ball, it's a goal. It's a goal by Willie Johnston. 39 minutes gone.
And me, Bud, nicked a second one, and 2-0 were quite comfortable, because one of the things in that tournament right through from the first round, we hadn't conceded many goals. So at half time, we're not too bad, and we're thinking, well, just hung on in here. Then we got a real bonus because early in the second half we scored again at that end.
Steen, and here's Willie Johnston with a chance, and it's a goal. It's a goal by Johnston, right out of the blue. Rangers 3 up, incredibly 3 up. The start of the second half.
Big Peter, he was trying to kick it to Girvan, I think, and I just got in the end of that and scored. A lot of people says I was offside, but I wasn't.
And I remember running over that far corner there when he scored it, and I actually said to him, because he'd played in the Nuremberg game as well, the previous final, I says to him, "Me man, we've done it now, we can't lose it now." But as the story tells, it goes on, we lost a stupid goal.
Here's Matheson, and it's a bad one. The great chance for the Russians, and it's a goal. Number 13 has scored.
I think a little bit panic set in, and when we lost another one, make it 3-2. And basically the Russians came more into the game then, and they really gained confidence. And they showed their fitness. They were really a fit side. And that was the only time in the game where they really gave us any problems.
But Rangers held on for a 3-2 victory, which was far more convincing than that narrow scoreline might suggest. The final whistle was the signal for an explosion of joy and delight from the Rangers fans.
Russians, and there it is! The final whistle's gone. Rangers have won the European Cup Winners' Cup. And onto the field go thousands upon thousands.
Especially with Celtic being able to celebrate when in '67 in Lisbon. That's all our supporters wanted to do, was to celebrate. My first problem when the game did eventually finish was the guys came on, and this lad grabbed me from the back and lifted me up in the air. And as I came back down onto the ground, there was a big fella, he must have been about 6'2" and about 16, 17 stone. He was standing in front of me and he jumped up in the air as the guy lifted me, and he came down and landed back on my foot. And I found out later, he fractured a bone on the other side of my foot. And I eventually got down the tunnel, and then went through a maze of corridors to go to the dressing room. And basically it was just exhaustion and relief, and I don't think it really seeped into us that we'd won the cup.
Tragically, events out on the pitch had turned ugly. The Spanish police took exception to the fans' celebrations. It became obvious that the cup would have to be presented along a maze of corridors in an anonymous committee room. Well, this is it, John. After all these years, we can finally reveal that this is where you were presented with the Cup Winners' Cup.
This is it. It was like finding a needle in a haystack when I was played here. And I can tell you one thing, it's a lot more peaceful today than it was then. It was chaos. And all the people in here were all UEFA officials. And it was just a case of Willie Waddle bringing me in here, and I still had my strip and everything, my boots on. And I walked in, and the table just up there, with the cup sitting on top of it. And he just shouted over, "Glasgow Rangers," handed me the cup, and he says to me, more or less in the words, "Right, on your bike, get here as quick as you can." And Willie Waddle and I had walked along all these corridors, got the cup, and we just walked straight back out again. I mean, it was like going to pick up your brew money.
At the time it wasn't a disappointment because we were absolutely shattered. I was under pressure, to be honest with you. I was quite happy just to sit in the dressing room and have a few beers and some champagne and just let it flow.
We eventually go back to the dressing room, and I gave the cup to the players. And by the time I got to be back home there, the players had nearly all had their bath. I mean, just chaos after the match.
The fans may have missed out on a lap of honour in Barcelona, but it was only postponed until the team returned to Ibrox, when thousands turned out to pay tribute as Grieg held the silver trophy aloft. This was the moment they had waited so long to celebrate. But there were to be major changes in the aftermath of that Barcelona triumph. Manager Willie Waddle moved upstairs to the boardroom, and Jock Wallace took over as manager. Waddle's influence on the club was enormous.
I always looked upon Willie Waddle as Bill Struth Mark II. I know in my discussions with him, in the many discussions I had with him, how much he thought about Bill Struth. And I personally felt that, and I haven't said this to anybody else, but I always felt that Dido in many ways tried to carry on the traditions of this club that Bill Struth had worked so hard to set up.
He was a very hard man, but a very fair man. And sometimes he was a wee bit of a bully, you know, but he got what he wanted, and he was good for the Rangers because, to be honest, Celtic had enjoyed their 9 in a row, and the club had, by their standards, had declined a wee bit. He grabbed the club by the, you know, shirt tails and gave it a right good shake and sorted a lot of things out. And to be honest, Willie Waddle, he laid a foundation for the likes of the team that won the trebles.
He basically just laid down what he was going to do along with me. He says, you and I are going to lift this club from where it is at the moment and put it back to where it should be. And this is how we're going to do it. And you're the captain of the club, and I'm expecting you to do this, I'm expecting you to do that. And we started off from there. And that started a great working relationship I had with Willie Waddle right up until he left. And even till the day he died, I always looked upon him as a fatherly figure.
Personally, Willie Waddle and Joe Wallace, the campaign in that year to win it was absolutely tremendous. They spent a lot of time on the other team in the opposition, and we went through it. And every time that you went out for Willie Waddle in that campaign, you would have kicked your granny. You know, you really would have. You were all hyped up and ready to go.
Jock Wallace had been first-team coach, a hard man who enjoyed the total respect of every player at the club. He was to learn of his new role on a trip to the European Cup final with Willie Waddle.
And I sniffed something's in the wind, because they said, right, we'll go to Rotterdam and see Ajax and Inter Milan in the final. So I went to The Hague and stayed the night in The Hague, went down in the morning on the train, and we had a blare, a chat, and he wouldn't tell me what it was, but I thought they were a team after me. I thought they were another team after me, and he was putting me away at the country to keep me away from, you know. Maybe there was, they never told me that one. So we came back the next day and he said, you go, would you like to be team manager Rangers and we can work together, blah, blah, blah. Go home and think it over for a night. So I came back in the morning, accepted the job, and we took it from there, and it was a great moment in my life. The first thing I did, I never even phoned the wife, by the way. I went through and told my dad, because we're great buddies, you know. Phoned for the wife from Edinburgh, and she gave me a pretty heavy time on that phone, you know, for not telling her.
Wallace immediately set about the job of building on the Barcelona success. The New Year victory over Celtic got 1973 off to an excellent start.
Young looking for Carlane, Brogan challenging. Carlane looking for some help. Into Khan. Chance for McDonald. Appeals for the penalty and it's given. Derek Carlane, Rangers top scorer. His first Rangers Celtic match. Penalty kick. It's there, second time, but it's there. Celtic trying to turn on the pressure here. Callahan putting it into Deans. Deans a back header. Dalglish going up. First time shot, it's a goal! 2 minutes to play. Long ball through to Carlane. McDonald stepping in. Carlane there with Connolly. What a smash. Back out to Young finally. Khan shouting for it, over it comes, headed in by Khan, and a goal!
Part of bringing us back up again from where we were was Jock Wallace's training, because he made us train like I'd never trained my life before. But probably because of the hard training that he gave us over a lengthy period of time, it allowed not only myself but other players like Sandy and Wee Tam and Doddy to play a lot longer than we might have played. And Big Jock used to bully you into getting a result. He would tell you to go out and run them into the ground. And a lot of us had a lot to thank Jock for.
Back to Greg. Garden going down the wing. On to Smith. On to McLean. This is a good play. McLean through there towards Carlane, and a lovely goal. John Grieg And Dave Smith doing the leading up work. So Forsyth again to Grieg, on to Jardine, into Young. Young looking for an opening here, coming through. Still has it. Good shot, there's a goal! Kilmarnock don't get it away themselves. Young again, shot into Jardine. Jardine cutting round his man, gets it back to his left foot as well to cross it. Chance now for McLean, to Grieg. Bang, 3-0. Good goal by John Grieg. His 6th goal of the season for Rangers, the 3rd in this match. Beautiful play on the right. Jardine doing very well to establish the chance initially. And Grieg's finishing shot, well wide of goalkeeper Stewart.
Johnston, the beautiful ball to the crease. It's a goal!
Celtic were in full flow by that time, and obviously it being the centenary of the Scottish Cup final, it was a big event.
It's a good ball, it's a goal! Thailand the scorer. Here's Clinton Young for Rangers. As towards Conn. Conn going through. And it's there. The goal for Rangers. Rangers 2, Celtic 1. Within about 30 seconds of the second half kick-off.
It was one of the better Old Firm finals. Both teams played well, and I'll never forget it because Big Tam Forsyth scored the winning goal down at the Celtic end.
And it's in there, it's there.
He was so excited because he never got the puck. And he hit the ball in, but if he hadn't had these long studs in his boots, I'm positive he would have missed it. I never saw Big Tam scoring a goal at training. But from my point of view, it was particularly pleasing to see a guy like Tam Forsyth, who was an honest performer. Big Tam would play the same for you at Falkirk on a Wednesday night as he would here in a Scottish Cup final. And as he hadn't scored, I don't think he scored any goals at all, and that was probably his only one. He goes down the record books as scoring the winning goal in the Centenary Cup final. So I was really pleased for Big Tam.
Welcome though that cup final win was, Rangers' real target was the League Championship flag, which hadn't flown at Ibrox for 11 long years. Another New Year victory over Celtic at the beginning of 1975 raised Ibrox hopes that this could be their season.
McLean cutting infield, square to Parlane. Parlane gets it back, out to McLean, still dangerous. McDonald, Johnston, Scott, all in the middle. McLean, right foot to the left foot, there's the chip cross. Johnston going in, and it's there! Beautiful goal! Derek Johnson has scored in the 5th minute for Rangers. McDonald, McLean, great chance for number 2. It's there, it's number 2. McDougall coming away for Rangers. Good running here by McDougall. Nice ball out to McLean. There's the cross. Parlane, it's a goal. 3-0. Parlane has made it 3-0. 28 minutes gone in the second half, and that's the close-up that gives you the news.
By the end of March, Rangers needed just 1 point from the match with Hibs at Easter Road to win the title. Rangers fans packed the stadium in the hope of seeing their long wait finally ended.
Jardine. Goal play by Jardine. A good pass forward to McKean. McKean going in the outside, getting it across. Chance for Steen and a goal! 16 and a half minutes played and Easter Road erupts.
These days we used to run around the track, and Ibrox was a huge track. It was a 440 track, and Jock Wallace was the type that we trained hard. And the amount of times that year that John was running around the track with us, the next minute we'd go shooting up in the air and holding the back of his leg. And he really had a big problem with his hamstrings that year, so he didn't play a hell of a lot of games. But because John and the person he was and how well he was thought about by all the players, but all the people in the club, basically me and Jock had got together and said that, John was nowhere fit, and they put him on the substitutes bench. But because what he had been to the club and to the players, we said that I would come off with probably a couple of minutes to go if we were winning or looked like we were winning the championship, and John would come on, and basically so he could be there to actually get the trophy. So we arranged it, and well, it was 1-1 and there was only 2 minutes to come on, and John came on, although he was hobbling on that, but it was fitting that he did that because he was the person that deserved it more than anybody at the club at that time.
And it's all over, and Rangers have done it. There's Jock Wallace, and there's Sandy Jardine.
Sandy Jardine came in for about 5 minutes to go to let me go in, which was a great touch. And let me go on to be on the park when we won the league.
6 times they've been second. Twice they've been third. There's John Grieg with Jock Wallace. Grieg with Jardine. Wallace around all his players. John Grieg been lifted on the shoulders of his teammates.
The Rangers fans relished that title victory just as much as the Cup Winners' Cup win in Barcelona 3 years before. It was John Grieg's third league championship medal and the one he coveted most of all. But one final league match remained to be played, and Willie Waddle had an idea.
He says, I'm going to fill that ground on Saturday for Airdrie. And he was frightened because we'd won the league that they wouldn't turn up. I says, good boss. He says, you're going to help me. I says, I'll help you all I can. What are you doing? He says, well, we're going to put a big balloon in the middle of the park, a big barrage balloon thing. He says, and I'll talk to the press and we'll tell them that I've got a Hollywood starlet coming all the way from Hollywood and she's going to kick the ball off to celebrate you win the league championship. I says, fine boss, where'd that come in? He says, you're going to be the Hollywood starlet. I says, what do you mean? He says, well, you'll go in the balloon. I told the boys about it later, they says, that'll be 2 balloons together. But he says, you'll go in the balloon and you'll have this long dress on and you'll have a blonde wig. And you'll come out the balloon at 5 to 3 to a fanfare and you'll kick the ball off and then you'll take the wig off and you'll rip this dress off. He says, then they'll notice that you and there'll be a great roar goes up. I says, that'll be shining bright. So I had a half an hour's argument with him. When you didn't argue with Dougie in those days, you didn't argue with him as a player. When he gave me a real hard time, mate. He says, you go home and you think about it. So I came in the next day, I was only in the door 2 minutes. Up the stair again. I says, I'm not doing it. And there was a bit of banter about one. So he says, I'll never forget that. I says, fine. I'm sorry, but I'm not doing it. He didn't do it. But he bloody made me go round the park in a chariot, like Charlton Heston on a Saturday. I go off at the tunnel there and went out into the middle of the pitch. I couldn't toss the coin, I was shaking that much. For the first 20 minutes I was like a bit of jelly. I'd love to see pictures of that if I can ever get it.
Rangers were now becoming the dominant force in Scottish football. The side Jock Wallace had assembled by 1976 was an outstanding one. Solid at the back, quick and creative in midfield, and up front players with pace, skill and a real eye for goal. In addition, they had an inspiring captain in John Grieg.
Collinstein has scored. Donald with the throw. Darlene going up. Donald going in, heading it across to Johnston. Donald again, out in front to McLean, a deflection and a goal! A deflection, but it counts, it's 2-2. Goal number 4, what a game!
Well, I think you always give 100%. You know, there's a lot of players that have a lot of skill, but you only see them every 15 or 20 minutes in the game. John Grieg led by example. You know, if he was given 100%, then everybody else had to give the same. And he was great on the park. If someone wasn't playing well, or even if he wasn't playing well, he made sure that everybody around him did.
That was really the start of, if you like my team. There was a nucleus of about 8 or 9 players who went on to win the 2 trebles and take us through most of the 70s, which was very successful for Rangers then. And that was when it was starting to formulate. And of course John was a part of that team. He was the older member of the team then, and but he was a big influence on everybody.
Recovers well. Jackson. Brendan Young. McLean. To Young, that's a good ball. On to Derek Parlane. Parlane with it. Oh, Edmondson's there. Here's McDonald with it. It's there.
Alec MacDonald has opened the scoring.
MacDonald's goal proved to be the winner in that 75-76 League Cup final. The first leg of the treble was completed, and John Grieg collected the trophy, and with it, his third winner's medal.
This goes out, there it is. Rangers winning the 7th League Cup, and so equalling the Celtic record.
In the Scottish Cup that season, Rangers faced Aberdeen at Ibrox in round 4.
McKean, Derek Johnston has a chance. Derek Johnston gets his 16th goal of the season.
We had a team that was playing at their peak. You know, the Greggies and Jardins and Tom Forsyth, McLeans. You know, they were all players that they were maybe coming to the end of their careers, but they were at the peak. They were 28, 29, 30, which is the best time for footballers. And we just had a magnificent season that year. And again, we didn't go out and have a look at the opposition and say, well, we'll need to stop him playing, we'll need to stop him playing. We played with 3 men at the back marking, as they're trying to do nowadays. And we had packed to midfield, and we made sure we had wingers. I mean, if you get someone like myself that was good in the air, you need ammunition for that, so you've got to get wingers.
Rangers get the second half underway. They've got a very good Scottish Cup record against Aberdeen. This is their 17th meeting in the Cup. The previous 16 encounters, Rangers have won 9, Aberdeen 3, 4 have been draws. And Rangers confidently coming forward. Oh, what a simple goal! After 15 seconds, Alec MacDonald makes it 2-0 to Rangers. McKean trying to get round the back, but it comes to McLean. Chip forward, Henderson! That is number 3 for Rangers. A glorious goal from Martin Henderson. Rangers finding a lot of space, and McKean has got the legs to outwit Rob. Henderson's working back. He dummies it. Parlane! Brilliantly saved by Geoghegan. But Parlane's got it. Derek Parlane, Rangers' second substitute. With 4 minutes remaining, puts Rangers in an invincible lead by 4 goals to 1.
A comfortable 5-0 win over Queen of the South at Palmerston in the next round took Rangers through to the semi-final at Hampden against Motherwell. Things didn't go quite according to plan early on.
And McLean. Up in possession too often, now break here. Graeme, can he lay it off? Here's McLaren going in. It's a great goal. Oh, a great goal for Motherwell. Easily mopped up there by Stevens. No real challenge by Rangers, and here's Willie Pettigrew going in well. It's a great chance for Motherwell. Can he turn it round? He will. He's done it. 2-0.
That was fingernail stuff, that Stein. Really, Motherwell played very well and got into a really good lead, 2-0 up. But basically that typified the character of the team. And the character of John, because the team did reflect John's personality in many ways, that the will to win, never to give up, and really it was only in the last 10 minutes that we basically swamped them.
That's it, 2-1. Again, a mighty one, Derek Johnston after this. There's Johnston, it must be an equaliser. That's it, an incredible goal.
I felt, well, we'll beat them now, because if you give somebody 2 goals a start and you come back to that, particularly here at Hampden, with the experience that we had in our team, I was confident we could get it. And we got a free kick just here, and I think it was quite late on in the game, but and I was going to take it, and the only thing in my mind was to put it into that box and try and cause a bit of problems. I must say I was so accurate with the free kick that I hit about 65 yards right into Derek Johnston's head, and all I had to do was let it bounce off him and it went to the net.
And Grieg with a free kick. Parlane with it, this must be it. That's it. Rangers have got what should be the winner. Derek Johnston makes it 3-2 for Rangers with only 2 minutes left.
I don't think Motherwell were too pleased that night, because I think they felt they had a real good chance, and they played very well, and I think if it had been anybody else but us that night, they would have probably got through to the final.
On the Saturday before the cup final, Rangers travelled to Tannadice to meet a Dundee United team fighting against relegation. Victory would mean much more than just extending Rangers' long unbeaten run.
Rangers, with 23 games in a row without defeat, are poised to win the first ever Premier Championship. And a chance for them in the opening seconds. Derek Johnston, after 21 seconds, puts Rangers ahead.
It was to take Derek Johnston just 19 seconds longer to open the scoring 7 days later in the cup final against Hearts. The treble was there for the winning, and Rangers were on their way before the clock struck 3 o'clock. And it had all been worked out beforehand.
Tommy McLean and myself had spoken just before we went out and said, look, if we do get a free kick in the situation where it's 25 yards out, I'll turn my back on you, I'll go to the back post, I'll then turn and make a sprint to the near post, just you be ready and find me, because he was the best passer of the ball in the game, Tommy McLean. And you say the first 15 seconds there was a free kick, I think I got fouled myself. And I just looked at Tommy, he looked at me, we didn't have to say anything else. I just walked into the box, to the back post, and then I turned and sprinted to the near post, and what a magnificent ball he gave me. And the ball was in the back of the net before the goalkeeper at the time of look.
McLean with Grieg. In goes Johnson, it's here! 40 seconds, it's now McKean with it. Jackson just behind there and McDonald, let's fly, that's it! Eric McDonald makes it 2-0 for Rangers on the half-time whistle. Kenny Ed. Grieg mucked it up easily, now McLean to Grieg. Here's Martin Henderson in the open. Grieg coming through. Henderson with it. There's McKean with Brown. Tending to overdo it. Good running by McKean though. That's it! Derek Johnston, the third goal.
The good thing about that side was that they were all pals. They were all decent guys. This dressing room was great. You had no problems. You could go with the first 5 guys here on one Saturday night with their wives, then go with that 5 over there with their wives the next Saturday night. It was that type of team spirit within the dressing room in those days.
It really all turned about when Jock Wallace took over. He actually made us a team. He actually gelled us all together. Instead of when we went away, they would all go to individual pubs. He got us in the one pub, and we stayed there. And he looked after us. And it was, you know, John Grieg. And John would always maybe be the first up to sing, and it was absolutely brilliant. I mean, because we were all pretty, you know, saying to myself, oh, John Grieg. Up we went, away we go. So we following on. So he always created a team spirit.
I think the first treble was an awful great experience as far as I was concerned. We had worked hard to get a team, and we were just marrying as a team. We were just getting together as players. I wanted to do the treble for the Rangers and for my own satisfaction, because I was pretty psyched up at that time. It didn't mean a lot. It was just a lot of words till we actually done it, you know. And I think the fact that we managed to get a treble was a tremendous performance for that team.
Once again, it was John Grieg who accepted the trophy on behalf of a team he led in every sense of the word. Grieg was captain of Rangers, on and off the pitch, 24 hours a day, wherever in the world he happened to be. His teammates thought the world of him, and so too did an old rival, Bobby Lennox, painful though one memory is for the Celtic man.
Bobby flew by me. I was quite astonished actually. I did catch him that night, just at the edge of the box. And I tried to slide in and slide the ball away. But he just nicked it away as I come in. So the referee quite rightly blew for a penalty kick. But I immediately got up and claimed the offside. And to my astonishment, I looked across, the linesman was standing with his flag up.
That was just an unfortunate thing. This happens. I mean, I've played against a lad 100 times. These things happen. You know, just an unfortunate thing. To be fair, he was man enough to come down the next day to Saltcoats from Edinburgh to make sure it was broken, you know.
And me Bobby was sitting with his leg up, with plaster from his ankle up to his thigh. Alec Cameron asked one of the stupidest questions I've ever heard in my life. He says, Bobby, when did you realise your leg was broken? And Bobby jokingly turned around and says, as soon as I saw that big coming towards me.
I actually never seen him coming and I jumped, you know. I think the Celtic support obviously thought, big dirty Greggy, you know, but he wasn't really. He was a really fair competitor to play against. And we always felt if he wasn't in the Rangers team at that time, we always felt we had a better chance.
You can't possibly play for a club like Rangers for 18 years, and you couldn't play 44 international matches just with kicking people. I like to tackle people because that's my job.
Greg's inspirational contributions for club and country saw him awarded the MBE by the Queen in 1977. It was another outstanding highlight in a remarkable career and delighted everyone in football. But even if Greg at 34 was coming towards the end of his playing days, he had no thoughts of retiring. Amazingly, another treble lay just around the corner.
Russell again. Gordon Smith. Gordon Smith scores his 20th goal for Rangers.
That's probably the most bizarre Old Firm game that I ever played in. And, I mean, Celtic were attacking, they had a spell for about 15 minutes, they were never out of our half. And a ball just came into the box and there was a push. I think one of our lads pushed one of the Celtic players, and of course they're all shouting for a penalty kick, and the ball went out for a goal kick.
The referee waving play on. For a moment he gave the Celtic fans some hope there. He appeared to run to the spot, but waved play on. McDonald. McLean. Russell must score. Greg in fact finishes it off.
Greg's goal ensured that Rangers' Championship challenge stayed on course, and things were going well in the cup competitions too. The third round Scottish Cup draw threw up a tie which brought back painful memories for John Grieg and for every Rangers fan. Berwick Rangers at Shieldfield. But there was never any chance of the greatest cup upset of all time in 1967 being repeated. Colin Jackson scored twice, and so did Derek Johnston, whose power in the air was always a major source of goals for Rangers. Rangers won 4-2, and Jock Wallace typically demanded that Rangers' attitude was always right, no matter the opposition.
I respect everybody I play against. If you don't play every game as a cup final, to my mind, you're wrong. Or if your attitude is not for a cup final, you know. As a manager, I like to think that I know their managers' psychologies and their approaches to game and their team's tactics. Why go and look at them if you're not going to look at their tactics or individuals' players' strengths and weaknesses?
No need to motivate either set of players for the game here. They're always superb. Aranello floating it in. It's a good one. John Grieg. Right in that rescue area. That's a good ball. Rocks there. Yes. Jackson watching, but only to Aranello. Oliver, 3 up there, there's a beautiful ball to Davidson. He could put this away, and he does, yes! To Smith, Derek Johnson after this. And he does it, yes! Brilliant effort by Johnson. Now this is where Motherwell have looked good. Stevens is there, but Grieg at the back. Now McLean. That's to watch McDonald, that's a beautiful pass. McDonald hard after it, still there. Into Cooper it is. That must be Smith, yes. The equaliser. McLean taking it. That's towards Colin Jackson. There's Smith, and that must be Dave Cooper. Now Russell. To Derek Johnson. Oh, good run by Johnson. He's on the break. He and the goalkeeper. Now can he put it in? He does. Yes.
Rangers were marching on to another championship, and their captain was once again playing a major part. His contribution, though, had changed over the years.
But I knew I was coming to near the end, and I wanted to really soak in as much of it as I could, because I knew full well that irrespective of what I did in latter life, nothing would ever compare with it. I lasted the games no problem. I wasn't as quick as other players, I wasn't as quick as I'd been myself a few years earlier, but what I'd lost in sharpness, I was making up for by experience. And my head was telling me to be in positions. And it's a true saying, if you put an old head on young shoulders, you've got somebody. And I really played with my head more in the latter years. And I thoroughly enjoyed the last few years of my career.
The 1978 League Cup final, played later in the season than previously, saw Rangers take on their oldest rivals again. It was to be another day to remember for John Grieg.
Donald inside, Dougie with Smith. Cooper. Smith. The back is Grieg. And Smith made that look obvious. He gets it crossing. There's Cooper. It's a great goal. Judged well. Snedden. Keeper watching it carefully. That's an equaliser. Edmondson. Miller going now. McDonald was there, and that must be Gordon Smith has scored Rangers second with 3 minutes left. And there's a very delighted John Grieg. I think tying on the ribbon, I don't think they could have been very sure about it right to the end. And he's done that a win of times in his career.
With the League Cup back in the Ibrox trophy room, the next challenge, of course, was to add the League Championship trophy. That was duly accomplished at Ibrox, against Motherwell.
John Grieg to take this. Jackson's there, that's it! Motherwell defence loving dangerously. There's Cooper, now Johnston. Wants to cut it back, it must be Smith, yes. About 50,000 people looking at the referee. Much more fluid again. And there it goes. John Grieg with the ball at the final. Rangers have won the championship.
John Grieg had led his team to a second championship in 3 seasons. The long years of having to accept second best in the league were all but forgotten, and the one man who had suffered more than anyone in Rangers' cause had enjoyed every second of it in the twilight of a marvellous career.
Up goes John Grieg, acknowledged by his team as one of the great captains of Ibrox.
But even in the midst of the celebrations, no one at Ibrox could forget that they now had a chance to make history. A cup final victory over an Aberdeen side managed by Billy McNeill would give Rangers an incredible second treble in 3 years. No one knew it at the time, but it was also to be John Grieg's 857th and last match for Rangers.
Gordon Smith. Cooper coming infield, Derek Johnston. Russell. Johnson signalling for a return. Alec MacDonald. Beautiful goal by Alec MacDonald. McLean with his left foot. And a great header by Johnston. Great goal by Johnston. McLean. That's it. Rangers have won, and John Grieg has his 6th winner's medal. The remarkable man who has just capped 18 seasons at Ibrox.
In fact, Grieg had already signed a contract to play on for another year, but he never got the chance to honour it. Within days of that cup final victory, Jock Wallace would be gone, and the cup-winning captain would become the new Rangers manager.
The treble in '78, I didn't know, but it was to be my last season. But it wasn't a bad way to do it.
And John Grieg showing the cup to the fans, followed there by Sandy Jardine. What a moment of real joy for John Grieg.
About a couple of weeks after that cup final, I was out watching my nephew playing in a junior match in Edinburgh, and I got back in and Jeanette says to me, it just come over the news, Jock Wallace has resigned. He's away to Leicester City. So I took my jacket off and I says, well, I've got my bed. She says, why? I said, because I'll get a phone call tomorrow, they'll give me that job. I knew that Willie Waddell was grooming me for something, because he made a statement to me a couple of years before the end of my career that he says that you'll never leave here. As long as I'm here, you'll never leave here. When I came through here, I couldn't help but think, before me, in the history of Rangers Football Club, there'd only been 6 managers. And they were asking me to be the 7th one. Which meant, it's not many people that's been asked to be the manager of this club. And probably because it was my ambition to always be a manager. Also, you never know if you would ever get asked again. And thirdly, because it was Rangers, and because it was Willie Waddle and the board that was asking me, I couldn't turn it down. And it's okay, people have asked me millions of times now, in hindsight, do you think you made the right decision? Should you know went to Clyde or Falkirk? It was a difficult decision for me. And how does one person who's been 18 years here turn around and say, no, I don't want to manage the club? I love this place.
Remarkably, Grieg came within one match of winning another treble in his first season as manager. In Europe particularly, his tactical astuteness was a revelation as Rangers faced top-class opposition in the European Cup.
Rangers with a pre-planned move. There's Signs with it. Here's a great chance for Smith. And there's a goal!
They had 7 of the Italian World Cup team in their side. Willie Waddle says, look, we're going to Milan. And I sat watching them. And I picked my team to play against them in Turin before the half-time whistle went. Because I looked at them and they were full of the superstars out of the Italian national team, World Cup side. I had the boys I just stopped playing with, who, irrespective of what anybody says, gave me the greatest respect when I became the manager. From being in here one day as a player to being up the stairs the next day as manager, the guys were great.
Russell. There's a goal! Gordon Smith!
John had great qualities in that, his knowledge of the game. And as I say, particularly when we played PSV, they were a really good team. And although we only drew here at Ibrox, when we went out over to PSV, they'd never been beaten for 40 games in Europe at home. And we set the team up the right way, and we played well, and we beat them 3-2. In fact, in my time at this club, I think away performance, that would be the best away performance that I ever played in.
Yeah, I had 2 plans for the Eindhoven game, Plan A and Plan B. Plan A lasted 18 seconds. Plan B, the boys just went and played.
For side. It's slagged. There's McDonald. Here's Tommy McLean. Needs to kill it quickly. There's Alec McDonald. He scored! Oh, it's a superb goal by McDonald. Oh, that's a goal! That's a superb goal! Tommy McLean. He has Bobby Russell inside. Russell going. Brilliant run by Russell. He needs a chip. He's done it! Oh, great goal by Russell!
I wanted a Rangers team that could not only be successful, I wanted them to entertain the legions of supporters that follow us. The first training session we had a band of goalkeepers were kicking the ball out. I made them throw it out. And because I don't believe you've got skillful players that the ball's going to eventually come 50 feet in the air and land at their feet. I felt you had to get the ball to your skillful players on the ground and let them play.
30 minutes left. Bobby Russell, Alec Miller. Miller running. McDonald, that's a deflection, is in! Alec McDonald, with 52 minutes of the second half gone, Rangers have equalised.
You can still see the marks in the dugout yet, Dougie, because I sat here and kicked every ball. I mean, I was jumping up and banging my head off of that roof. I was heading balls out when we were defending. I was kicking balls at that end when we were shooting. My first season in particular, I played 90 minutes in here instead of out there.
McLean with us, all the big men up. Derek Johnson, Colin Jackson. There's Jackson going for it here. Fully 3 minutes into injury time, Colin Jackson has done what he's done so often.
You then followed it up not long afterwards with another trophy, because you retained the Scottish Cup as well in the 3 matches against Hibs here.
Well, I don't know if that was a Scottish Cup final or if we were trying to remake Gone with the Wind, because I sat here for 3 games, and I think I got about as bored as the people were watching it, because there were 3 terrible games. Bertie Auld was the manager at Hibs at the time, and Bertie was never renowned for having attacking-minded sides. The cup final actually went to the 3rd match before we eventually won it. So we won the 2 cups in my first season.
It had been a wonderfully encouraging start for the new manager. But Ibrox was beginning its massive reconstruction, and the difficulties the team faced in playing in a three-sided stadium should not be underestimated. There were still victories to savour, though.
Here's McAdam. That's a great shot, is there? That's McLean. Straight back to McDonald. Jackson. The next step, John McDonald. Great effort for McDonald. He scored. 2-0. Johnston going on the outside. Sullivan with him. Still Johnston. Might try the cross, and he does. There's McAdam, and he's done it. 3-0.
And then in 1981, you won the cup again. Dundee United, but only after a replay.
Yeah, I think the significant thing in that was that I left Davy Cooper out for the first match. Davy hadn't been playing well, but on the Wednesday night I put Davy back in, and I think just a little bit G up helped him because he was absolutely magnificent.
And that's the opener from Davy Cooper. Cooper playing it in. Bobby Russell makes it 2. And that really was a wicked free kick from Davy Cooper. Good turn from Cooper. McDonald wants it inside the fullback. John McDonald, and he's made it!
But even that cup final win didn't blind the manager to the fact that the great side he had captained in the late 70s had grown old together. Greg had to rebuild his team. New faces arrived as he searched for the right blend. Amongst them, a young striker called Alistair McCoist.
He always kids me on about it and said, you know, he pulled out the soccer scrap heap down at Roker Park. I was in the gutter, rolling along a gutter. I wouldn't go that far, but I have to say I'm forever indebted to him for bringing me to Glasgow Rangers. I've been very, very fortunate. All the managers I've played under, I've learned an awful lot from, and none more than John Grieg.
Ian Durrant was another Greg signing, and one he still holds in great affection. It certainly wasn't his most expensive piece of business.
He was like an X-ray with clothes on when he came here, and he always tells me to this day that I only gave him a £5 to sign on for this club. And I says to him, Ian, you're absolutely correct. You got a £5 because I didn't have a pound in my pocket. These two are the last 2 players that I signed that are still with the club. And they don't let me forget it. They keep telling me that if I'd played the two of them together, I'd still be the manager here. But I've no wish of that.
All the players who signed for Greg or played under him speak highly of his man management skills. Greg himself is in no doubt about the most rewarding part of the job.
I actually got more satisfaction as a manager bringing on younger players, trying to give them the chance that I'd got all these years before. And I try to look upon them all as if they're my own son. I put my son's head on his shoulders and think, well, I'll treat him right, and I'll try and make him a football player.
But despite all his efforts, the results just weren't coming, and the pressure was mounting. On October the 28th, 1983, John Grieg resigned as Rangers manager.
The main reason was because my health was starting to go. My hands were starting to, my skin was starting to flake off my hands with stress, and I was having to go to a specialist and get injections in my eye, and I was getting migraine headaches. And I thought, wait a minute, life's more important than football, as far as I was concerned at that age. And I thought, I can't go on with this. And basically I would have left here a lot earlier than I did if I'd known the strain my family was under. I didn't know until I left here. When I walked out of here that particular day, it was a sad day, obviously. But it was as if somebody had taken a building off my shoulders. I began to realise that it's a big wide world out there. I got offered quite a number of jobs in Scotland, but when you've been in a place like this, with the greatest respect to the rest of them, where do you go? I couldn't bring a team back here and play against Rangers and put my hand on my heart and honestly say that I was wanting to beat them.
While Grieg went on to develop his undoubted skills as a radio and TV analyst, Graeme Souness took over as manager in 1986. He is in no doubt about John Grieg's place in Rangers history.
He would be, in my opinion, the greatest Rangers player that's ever been. And I felt that it would have given us a bit of credibility in the eyes of people who maybe doubted our actions at the time and the direction we were going in. It was the correct thing to do. It was most certainly the correct thing to do.
I couldn't understand why at Ibrox, you know, we had Mr. Waddle and Mr. Thornton, and the obvious next man for that would be Mr. Grieg. And I think Grieg is up there with the greatest servants there's ever been at Ibrox.
You got to remember he was or is a Rangers man through and through. He was there for a long time as a player and had a go at the management side. And his knowledge and his experience, I would ask him. There wasn't a day gone by when I wouldn't ask him for advice on something, whether it was in the playing side or something to do with the club. He was invaluable to me.
Many greats have played at Rangers, but very few have given the commitment and time in their life to Rangers. And I think that's where he stands head and shoulders above many.
And he is a legend. John Grieg around Ibrox today is called The Ledge, and if ever there was a name for John Grieg, it's The Ledge.
It's not a job I've got. It's a labour of love. I get the same buzz coming to that front door in the morning with my car now as I did in 1959 when I came as a kid off the train for Edinburgh. You remember these supporters things? 1 o'clock.
John Grieg's official title, Public Relations Manager, doesn't begin to describe his involvement in every aspect of life at Ibrox. It isn't every day, though, that he's reunited with the man who saved his life on the banks of the Tay back in 1956.
Nice to see you again.
19 years.
19 years, is it?
19
is
years.
It really?
Aye, and you're looking older than ever.
I think everybody was watching you, but we thought you were just crying wolf again. You were just mucking around, as you did quite frequently. And it was a while before we realised you were going down for the third time. And that's, of course, when I plunged in and pulled you out, and we started artificial respiration. And we were waiting for the medical man, remember? He was further up the river with some of the other boys. And Eric and I started artificial respiration. But I would say it took 10 to 15 minutes before you came around anyway.
I mean, you're saying I was up and went and down 3 times. To me, I felt like Stirling Albion. I was up and down like a yo-yo. There is nobody gets any more satisfaction out of coming to their work than I do. This is a magic place. And there's a guy there that paid £4 million for it. They need to pay £10 million for me in those days.
John, in fact, was the first guy the Rangers squad to buy me a drink. It was in Las Vegas, wasn't it, John?
It was.
Las Vegas, and it was a pina colada. I'm off them now. Cost them about 800 quid to get us a bottle of wine now.
And by the way, I've got to get Oleg Solenko to tell me what he's saying. I can't understand him.
People around the stadium relate to John, and I think, you know, even for myself, I relate to him as being a great Rangers player, and I think everybody around here does that. And he's got a personality that's always pleases people. He always makes them laugh, and a very important person to have around the place.
Ian Gillant's wife is due any time during a couple of weeks, and Greg came over into conversation. My mum was there, and Ian's mum Ruby was there, and as he walked over, we Angela says to him, pointing to Greggy's stomach, and she said, "Well, Greggy," she says, "I've got 2 weeks to go. How long have you got to go?" And quick as a flash, he turned and looked at her and he said, "How long have I got to go? I'll tell you something, darling." He says, "I enjoyed myself a lot more getting this than you did getting that."
I talk to the superstars and even Alan McCoy. Something different's happening here all the time. It's a marvellous place to be part of.
We were playing golf at Isleworth in Florida. Very hot day, so I thought, well, you know, he's not accustomed to the heat. We'll tap him for a little $10, and I know this will be a cinch. Anyway, I shot 67 and lost. But you know what he did? He then realised that at my school, Blair Athol, in South Africa, we have a black soccer team. He then sent the Rangers and the strippers, you know, to our team. And that was really a very, very nice gesture, and they got a great kick out of it, particularly coming from Scotland, you know, to our Blair Athol back in South Africa.
John Grieg played 857 games for Rangers, scored 140 goals, won 14 Cup League and European medals, and won 44 caps for Scotland. But the statistics can only hint at the real story of the greatest Ranger of all, the man they call the Legend.
John is the best player of all time. He's typified the spirit and the heritage of this club. when you're a Rangers player in the Rangers, you always talk about the will to win. And for me, John is by far the greatest Rangers player.
You've got to be really honest and say John Grieg, in my opinion, is the greatest ever Rangers player that I've ever seen. You could always rely on Greggy. You get the same every game. It didn't matter at all who the opposition were. You knew John Grieg was going to give you 110%, and he's just a magic player.
You got to search for the hero inside yourself. Search for the secrets you hide. Search for the hero inside yourself until you find the key to your life. Flame of truth burning bright, the missing treasure you must find. Because you and only you alone can build a bridge across the stream. Weave your spell in life's rich tapestry.
It's all about breathing. Because if you stop, you're dead.
It turned out differently one summer day in 1956. Aye.
And we won 4-1. You need to stop because I knew it.
I call it spade a spade, and if the big man was a bit of a horn, I would have to say, but no, he's a good lad, the big man.
He's a really nice lad. When I was there, he was tremendous. Yeah.